Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the weekly webinar with your host, Clifton Brantley. Tonight, we are talking about conflict resolution. Okay, we're talking about resolving conflict. Conflict in your relationship is inevitable, right? It's inevitable. That means you cannot avoid it, although some people do. Or at least they try to. They try to avoid it. But to avoid conflict, it only makes things worse, not better, right? Because conflict resolution is such a vast topic, because conflict resolution is such a vast topic, I will not be able to cover everything about conflict resolution tonight, okay? It's not possible. However, I have actually been preparing something for you, a mini course on conflict resolution based on the survey that we did a few weeks ago and how people were talking about conflict resolution. Then as I'm doing my research, I realized, man, I really need to do an extensive teaching on conflict resolution. And so I've created for you a mini course, and the mini course is called Rules of Engagement. It is 6 videos talking about how to resolve conflict. And it's not quite ready yet, but it should launch next week. I'm looking to launch it on next Wednesday. So by the time we do the webinar next week, you'll have it. Towards the end, I'll talk about it in more detail. Okay. So the thing about conflict is this, just as with everything else, if you learn it wrong, you will live it wrong. And if you live it wrong too long, you will be convinced that it's right. So what do we even mean by conflict resolution? What does that mean? Well, conflict is when things are not harmonious in the relationship. Okay. And then resolving conflict restores the harmony. And that is the ultimate goal of conflict resolution, to restore harmony. Or another word for that is unity, right? When restoring unity is your number one goal, it will affect how you engage with your partner, right? When restoring unity is your number one goal, it will affect how you engage with your partner. For example, if you're playing basketball and your goal is to win the game, then you will do certain things to achieve that goal. But if instead, if your goal is not necessarily winning the game, but your goal is to not get blown out by the other team by so many points, then your strategy will change and it will affect what you do, right? Again, if your goal is to score the most points on the team, then your strategy for that will be different than the strategy of trying to win the game. My point is, what your goal is will determine how you do what it is that you're trying to do. Okay, and your goal, if in the midst of conflict resolution, if your goal is to win the argument, then your strategy will be prideful. If your goal is to be found to be right, your strategy will be prideful. If your goal is to make your partner understand you, your strategy will still likely be prideful. And what does pride do? Say it with me, class. It destroys relationships. So the strategy that I'm offering will only work if your goal is to understand your partner and if you have the goal of restoring unity. All right. So what I want to talk about tonight specifically is how to avoid damaging your relationship more while in the midst of conflict. Because like I said, it's such a vast topic. I can't cover everything all at once and tonight. But what I do want to talk about specifically tonight is how to avoid damaging the relationship more while you're actually in the midst of conflict. Okay. So many times something small happens, and in a matter of seconds, it has escalated into something big, right? And so We want to try to avoid that, because when that happens, that's when you know the thing that you're fighting about is not the thing that you're fighting about, right? But let me say this. Before I get into that, let me speak a little bit more on the importance of conflict resolution. Okay, conflict is necessary if your relationship is going to grow. Yeah, conflict is necessary if your relationship is going to grow. But the growth can't happen if you do not actually resolve things, right? Not talking about the problem, sweeping it under the rug, not bringing it up anymore does not mean it's resolved. It is only resolved when unity is restored. That's it. Unity does not always mean agreement or identical beliefs, right? So let me talk more about that. When you think of harmony, harmony is complementary, not identical, right? In conflict resolution, the relationship, which for the remainder of this session, I'm going to refer to as the team, right? The team has to be more important than the individual opinions and thoughts of the teammates. You feel me? Right? When you put what you want and how you feel above the team, then it's probably not going to go well. All right? It's not going to go well. But let me say this. That brings up a thought. So many people are involved in toxic relationships. Okay? So what I'm sharing tonight, I want to be very clear. What I'm sharing tonight is not for people who are in toxic relationships. Okay? What I'm sharing tonight is like baby aspirin. If you're in a toxic relationship, you need Tylenol 4 with codeine or Vicodin. You feel me? And I'm just speaking to the how relatively different what I'm talking about tonight and what you need for a toxic relationship, right? This is not for that. And that Tylenol 4 would be therapy. Okay, you need therapy. But then I know you probably have the question, how do you know if you're in a toxic relationship? How do you know if you're in a toxic relationship? Well, it's not because you can't have your way. Okay, so just because you can't have your way, that does not mean you're in a toxic relationship. And guess what? Fighting all the time does not mean that the relationship is toxic necessarily, right? It could just mean that you are immature, right? But if you're in a toxic relationship, it will involve some form of consistent abuse, verbally, physically, emotionally, right? It'll involve name calling, intentionally hurting your partner for revenge, and using sensitive information against them to harm them, right? All of these are toxic behaviors. If these behaviors, if trying to take revenge, for either one of you, trying to take revenge, or saying hurtful, intentional things, calling each other, calling names, if those things exist in your relationship, they're toxic. But if they happen on a consistent basis, then your relationship is toxic. You have to protect yourself around toxic people, even if you're married to them, and that's sad to say. It is sad to say to me, but if you're married to a toxic person, you got to protect yourself. If you are the toxic one, get some help. You were not born that way, right? So it's not the way that you have to be, right? You were not born toxic. So whatever happened to make you that way, that needs to be addressed. Okay? All right. Let's see. Okay, now. So let's talk about some strategies for you to implement so that you can not injure the team. All right. So I already told you, you got to have the goal of, your goal has to be restoring unity and understanding your partner. right? Not getting your partner to understand you. Your goal is to understand them, right? And what I'm about to share with you as far as these different, I'm calling them strategies, but not really strategies. I use strategies to go with the concept of team, right? But you get what I'm saying. These are not in any particular order, okay? I'm just going to give them to you kind of as they come to me, all right? So any questions? No questions. Okay. So when it comes to preventing more damage, stay away from sarcasm. And I cannot emphasize this enough. You must get sarcasm out of your relationship. All right. It doesn't matter if you were raised with it. It does not matter that your family of origin was that way. It is painful and it's underhanded, right? Sarcasm is a way of throwing a rock and hiding your hand, as my dad would say. When you use sarcasm, your thoughts and feelings are wrapped up in hollow point bullets. I used to be really sarcastic until one day one of my kids came to me and told me how hurtful it was. And I changed immediately, okay? I can't say that I was like delivered completely in that moment, no, but that is my ultimate goal, because I was able to see how painful sarcasm is. And trust me, it's not funny. It sometimes people use sarcasm when they are like playing, just like on an everyday basis. They never really share what's really going on. They just kind of, being sarcastic. And so then when there's conflict, sarcasm shows right up. And I want to tell you, you want to get that out of your relationship. Okay. Now, so here's an example of what I mean by when you're using sarcasm, you're not really communicating how you feel, right? So imagine you come home from work late, and all the lights or let's say a husband, right? Husband comes home from work late, and all the lights in the kitchen are off. I mean, all the lights in the house are off, and the kitchen is cold, right? When you see your partner, when the guy sees his partner, he says, well, I guess I'm not going to get anything to eat tonight. That is not expressing how you truly feel, right? What you truly feel is probably, I'm disappointed that when I got home, there was no food prepared. It made me feel like you forgot about me. Right? Those may be the real sentiments, but what came out is, I guess I'm not going to eat tonight. That's called sarcasm. Your partner cannot respond appropriately to your sarcasm. Or I ain't gonna say they can't, but it's difficult to respond to sarcasm in an appropriate way. That would be a better way to say that. So get rid of all sarcasm. Period. Point blank. Just don't do it. Okay. And like I say, I'm a recovering sarcastic. It's an ineffective way to communicate. And we're talking about communication. We're in the communication series. When you're involved in conflict, the communication is crucial, and sarcasm here's why I call it underhanded, because you're not communicating what you truly feel. And really, it does not give your partner the opportunity to address what's really going on with you. Right? You put them on, you make them backpedal like, man, where's this coming from? Because they could be somewhere completely different mentally. You come in, with that, making assumptions instead of asking questions. Okay. So, what's the next thing? Here's another strategy. Do not be defensive. Do not be defensive. If you're trying to resolve conflict, if unity is your goal, you cannot be defensive. I should have said this one first, because being defensive is one of the most counterproductive and potentially destructive ways of responding to conflict. Being defensive is one of the most counterproductive and potentially destructive ways of responding to conflict. When you're defending yourself, you're not engaged in conflict resolution at all, right? Interestingly enough, being defensive is one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. That's a term coined by John Gottman, who's the only guy that's really done like extensive years of research, and he uses these four horsemen to predict divorce with over a 90% accuracy. Accuracy. My tongue got stuck. A 90% accuracy. When you defend yourself, you're not thinking about your partner or your relationship, but rather how you feel and what you want. Okay? The most unproductive conversations are unproductive, usually because one or both of you are being defensive. Nobody's listening to the other person. You're just trying to get your point across, right? The antidote to being defensive is, number one, listening to understand, right? You got to listen to understand, not listening to respond, right? And then number two, you got to validate your partner's feelings and thoughts, even if you don't agree with them, okay? Validation is not about agreement. It's about validating that this is real and it matters. That's all validation is. Then number three, you got to accept responsibility without explaining why you did what you did, right? So like in my early example with the partner, like the husband coming home and the lights are off and no food. If he had stated his true feelings, then the wife could respond by saying, man, I apologize. I apologize that you felt that way when you got home. That's not, I would never want you to feel that way. I did not forget you. I could never forget you. That's how you would respond to someone who comes at you sideways if you're going to respond in a way that's not defensive, right? She does not have to explain in that moment that she was not feeling well, that she was emotionally drained from her long day. She can explain that later, right? The reason she can explain it later is because right now, the most important thing is the relationship, not her. I'm sorry, the team. Let me say, the most important thing is the team, not her being seen as a good wife. And a lot of times that's what we're trying to defend. Our spouse has, our partner has an idea or image or belief or whatever about us that we don't like. And so we defend ourselves to try to change it. When the guy came in and said, I guess I'm not eating tonight, or if he had communicated effectively and said, I'm really disappointed that there's no food and I feel like you forgot me, she still don't have to defend herself. Nowhere did he say the words, you're not a good wife, did not come out of his mouth. But a lot of times that's what we hear. When our spouse comes at us with a complaint, what we hear is how we're failing, how we're not good enough, and how we're this and how we're that. And look, even if they actually say those words, you suck. I hope they don't say you suck, but you get what I'm saying. You still don't have to defend yourself. You don't, right? So because the team is most important, you validate by addressing how, like she would validate how she addressed how he feels. I'm sorry that you feel that way. When you came in the house, I'm sorry that you had that experience. And of course I didn't forget you. I would never forget you. Like, I don't know. I could never forget you. Right. And then so that may then also facilitate him asking a question. Well, why didn't you? Then she can offer her explanation. But if he don't open the door like that, then she can give that explanation like tomorrow or whenever. Why? Because it's not overly crucial that he gives you the good wife label, that she gives you the good husband label. It's not overly crucial. If God gives it to you and they're a flawed being, or if you actually messed up, just accept what you did and keep moving. It doesn't mean you're evil, right? Doesn't mean that you're evil. So here's another strategy. and this may not be one that you guys probably would have thought, but no yelling. Yeah. If you've worked with me before, you've probably heard me say, and I usually say this when we're talking about children, but this is what I say. We do not yell at humans. We don't. I mean, unless you are trying to like save their life. Hey, get out the street. Hey, it's a car coming. That's about the only yelling you should be doing. But there is no yelling at humans, right? When you're in conflict, there should be no yelling. No human, whether they're 3, 8, 21, 45, 99, no human responds well to yelling. If you cannot communicate in a better way, then you have unresolved issues inside and you need to deal with that. Okay? Sometimes we have to resolve the conflict within before we can deal with the conflict without. Right? Sometimes we got to deal with the conflict within ourselves before we can effectively resolve conflict with somebody else. If I'm in conflict inside, how am I going to resolve something with you in a healthy way? How am I going to restore unity with you when there's not unity within inside of me? Right? So you want to address that. Now, when it comes to yelling, when discussions get heated, voices may raise. That's normal, right? Your voice may fluctuate. So raising your voice is not the same thing as yelling, right? Everybody knows what yelling is. Yelling is demeaning, right? How do you expect the person to come towards you and be loving after you yell at them, right? Remember, the goal is to restore unity for the team. If you're focused on your feelings and they take precedence over the team, then you will be doing things that you're not considering the wellness of the team at all, right? You guys do have to live past today, right? We're having a discussion today, but tomorrow's coming. You can't tear them down today when you intend to still be in a relationship with them tomorrow. Why would you do that? It reminds me of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and I should have had that clip to play for you. But Mr. and Mrs. Smith, it's a movie with Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. They both are assassins, but they work for different companies, right? And they believe that their company has put a hit out on their spouse. So they're at home, they're eating dinner, and they believe that the other person is going to try to kill them. Next thing you know, they're in a full-out war in their house. They tear up the house that they live in. And what I try to tell people is, like, don't poison your own marriage. It's yours. Why would you do that? You can't hurt your spouse without hurting your relationship, because they are a part of the same relationship you're in. Okay? So, no yelling. No yelling at humans. If things get too heated and you want to you feel like you're starting to get to the point to where you're yelling, stop, pause, pull back, take a break. Why do we got to resolve this right now today? Now, I know some things are, like pressing. But for the most part, if we're going to be together forever, which is a really long time, at least in our minds, we don't know when we're going to die or whatever. But if we're going to be together forever, why do we have to resolve this conflict today? Like, can we take a break, especially if it's too heavy? Now, I'm saying this, but I'll be honest with you. I'm one of those people that don't like letting things linger, and I'm not promoting letting things linger. But sometimes it just can't be resolved in the time frame. Like, I've heard people say, don't go to bed angry. Where'd you get that from? It's a good idea, but you cannot make it, at least in my opinion, you can't make it a rule. Because the way life is, You can't make it a law, because the way life is, life will challenge you and put things in place to where it's just not possible. But then you try to make it possible. Now you can't perform at work because you stayed up all night talking, right? Now you sleepy on the road because you stayed up all night talking, because the rule says we can't go to bed angry. Did you know angry is not a sin? The Bible says be angry and sin not. Why did I even bring that in? Why did I bring up the Bible? Why am I talking about? Because, guys, so you see my Mac, my app. Who created this? Apple did. Who created my microphone? Rode did. Who created relationships? God did. So it just makes sense to address relationships the way the inventor of it designed them to work. I'm answering a question that you didn't ask, but I get asked it sometimes, and so in case you are wondering, that's why I'm giving that to you. So for free. So back to my point. The Bible says, "Be angry and don't sin." So the sin is not in the anger. The sin is how you respond to the anger. So we could go to bed disconnected. You know, folks say, "Well, what if you die in your sleep?" I mean, what? So if we're angry and one of us dies, what does that mean? It just means one of us died and I didn't get to say I love you one more time. But all the other times I said I love you. All the other great memories we have, they get canceled out because I didn't get to say goodbye. We make up things as humans that sometimes don't make sense. And we hold on to them like it do. Like we hold on to them like they do make sense, but they don't. Okay. My point is, why was I even on that? Because I'm saying, if you get too angry, or if the discussion gets too heated and you need take a break. Don't be so caught in, we got to resolve this right now, because that's not necessarily true. It's good. That's good practice. Resolve what you can when you can and as soon as you can. Right? In the mini course, I talk about how Jesus talked about resolving conflict and the hastiness he put behind resolving conflict, right? But sometimes you can't resolve it in a set amount of time, right? So don't beat yourself up over that. This is something I just thought about. And this is just, I guess this is just in general, but it does fit into conflict resolution. And just your life in general. Don't compare. Okay? Comparing will have you trapped in a very ugly, nasty prison, right? So here's what I mean. Don't compare your spouse to somebody else. Don't compare your relationship to somebody else. Don't compare your life to somebody else. That is a losing situation. Don't do that, right? When you're comparing, talk about your relationship. When you're comparing your relationship to somebody else's, now you have a standard or a measuring tool or whatever that's different than the one God designed, who is the creator, inventor of relationships. Okay? Now, if they're doing their relationship the way God said, great. But that don't mean you cheat off their paper. You still got to, you take your own test. That's their test. It's not your test. Okay? So don't fall into the trap of comparison. And who was this? I got a phone call and it messed up my notes. Okay, I'm back. Now, there is a like I said, there's a lot of information to share about conflict resolution, but I strongly urge you, I'm going to strongly urge you to, when the mini course launches, to get it. Okay, get the mini course because I believe it's going to be really helpful for you. And I'm actually going to add to the mini course some live. It won't be Q&A, but I guess it'll be kind of like coaching. So with the mini course, you'll have the option to add on to be able to interact with me live like 2 or 3 times, a month. I don't know. I haven't worked that part out yet, but my goal is to help you be better. My goal is to help you do love and life better. Okay. My goal is to help you have quality relationships so that you can have a quality life. Let me see. What's our time looking like? It only tells me what is left. It don't tell me what's expired. So I'm guessing we've gone like 30 something minutes, looks like. Okay. So I think I'm gonna stop there and let you guys ask me some questions. I'll leave more room on the end of this one for questions because, again, conflict resolution is like such a big topic. I want to give you guys enough time to ask whatever questions that you may have so we could dive into them. So the floor is yours. Tell me what you got. How can I help? How can I help you guys be better? You want to always make sure, and I keep repeating this, and I've said it several weeks in a row. You want to keep in mind that your partner is on your team. They are your partner. Stop being ugly to them. Stop being nasty to them. What's the point? Right? When you talk about resolving conflict, remember the goal is restoring unity, and that really should help a lot because if your mind, the only way that you are going to go into a conflict and like say things that are really hurtful and just I need to get all of this out. That's pride. You're going to hurt them, but your goal and mindset is not unity. And I said this earlier, but let me go back and let me backtrack and talk about this. So I talked about harmony. Harmony is not about being the same or identical, like having the same thoughts or being the same person. That's not harmony, right? Have you ever listened to like a symphony or orchestra? They are in harmony, but they're not all playing the same notes. They're not all playing the same instruments, right? They're not all playing the same, sometimes not even on the same beat, but it's harmonious. Why? Because it's complementary, right? It's not identical. It's complementary. And you want your marriage, relationship, or whatever to be complementary. You want to, when there's conflict, there is no harmony. Like the harmony has been disrupted. And your goal is to, so the reason I'm having this conversation is because I'm trying to get back to unity. I'm trying to get back to harmony. I'm not trying to prove to you that I'm right. I'm not trying to, get my point. I'm not trying to win, right? I'm trying to restore harmony because that's what's best for both of us. And the thing is, also when you come at it from the point of my goal is to understand my spouse or my partner, you're less likely to judge. You're less likely to listen to defend or respond, but you're listening even when they've hurt you. So this is what I tell people. Let's say, your spouse hurts you. You're their life partner. It's your role to help them be their best self, right? So if they've injured you, you want to find out, hey, what's going on with them so that I can know why they're hurting the person they say they love. Why are you hurting your husband? What's up? Like, what's going on with you? Why are you treating your husband this way? Because by you doing that, you're out of line with God. And I don't want you, because I love you, I don't want you to be that way. So I'm coming at you. We're addressing the issue, right? And I'm more so talking about the mindset. These are not necessarily the words, right, I'm describing the mindset. Okay. So I want to find out what's going on with you, so I'll know why you was disrespectful, so that I can help you, not so that I can put you down, not so that I can say you was wrong. We both know you were wrong already, but how can we get right? Great relationships don't just happen. You have to work at it. All right. How long is too long to resolve a conflict? Meaning that it's being drawn out. Man, look, let me tell you something. You don't know how great that question is. That is a great question. So, guys, please, if you trust me, please hear what I'm telling you. There is no set time, no set amount of time that conflicts should be resolved in. It don't exist. And the reason I say that is because when you tie yourself to shoulds, you put yourself in a prison, right? You want to resolve conflict as soon as possible. Just like when I started this journey to be a therapist, when I went to undergraduate, I wanted to become a therapist as soon as possible. But that took 6 years. That was as soon as I could do it. If I could have done it in 2, I'd have done it in 2. But I had to get 2 degrees. My point is, as soon as possible means as soon as possible. Not as soon as possible as long as it's 30 minutes. As soon as possible, long as, it's within my time frame. The thing about it, we allow conflict to get too serious. Now, let me say, but let me try to, I need to be careful in what I'm sharing now because I don't want to confuse you. There are conflicts that are serious and need immediate, there's some conflicts that are just more serious than others. Let me just put that way. And remember, I'm not talking about toxic relationships, right? So that helps. But a lot of times we take conflict too serious in the sense that I messed up. I'm a flawed being. I messed up. And I messed up bad. But it's because I'm human, not because I have an evil heart, not because I wanted to hurt you, not because I don't love you. I messed up. Let's just fight about this and not apply it to our person, my intent and my, it don't have, we can disagree and we can even get heated. But every time we get heated, the relationship got to come into question. We can't disagree in a heated way without questioning, am I still going to respect you? Am I still going to fix you something to eat? Am I still going to wash your clothes? Am I still going to, when I leave, go to the store, I'm still going to get you something? You know what I'm saying? One of the things I talk about in the mini course is dealing with one topic at a time and really kind of trying to compartmentalize as much as you can so things don't spill over into other things, right? Now, I know I'm taking a long way to answer your question, but there's no set time in how long it should take to resolve a conflict, because if I said 30 minutes, I'm Clifton. What if LaToya needs a different time? What if Susie needs a whole different time? And what if 2 people that are in a relationship have different time frames? Which one do we go with? Well, which one does God say? Because he's the neutral factor. I hadn't found anywhere in scripture where he gave a time frame. Now, what I was referencing earlier, where I talked about, Jesus talked about the haste, he says, go immediately to resolve it. But he didn't say how long it takes, but go immediately, resolve it. And then once that's done, then you can come back and worship. But don't come back until that's resolved. So it's not a set time. It's not a set time. And guys, you got to remember, your number one obstacle in your relationship is you. You are your number one obstacle. And so if you are stuck, oh, this is good. If you are stuck, do not blame your spouse or your partner for you being stuck. Sometimes we say, well, I'm stuck because they won't give me this, because they won't say that. They won't. But it's your life. Why stay stuck? And I'm not saying that you can, it's resolved. I'm not saying you can resolve it all in your mind. But what I'm saying is you not being able to move forward, that's not really, you'd have to give me a very unique situation for me to believe that that's on them. Okay. The reason why you can't move forward. You may think that, but you moving forward is on you. Okay. And my point in sharing that is because you are your biggest issue, and because you got to deal with your stuff, even when you've been wronged. Like if you've been wronged, watch this. If you've been wronged, but the thing that has been done to you, you can't get over it. They did the injury, but you not getting over it, that's you. So get help to figure out what's going on inside of me so that I can do human relationships better. Because again, conflict is inevitable. You cannot avoid it. And if you try to avoid it, you're only making things worse. It's like trying to suppress a basketball in the swimming pool that's full of air. You can hold on to that for a while, but when you let it up, it's going to bust you in the face. Now you got bloody nose and everything because you was trying to do something. The ball's not designed to be submerged in water and stay. Just like your emotions and conflict, it's not designed to be stuffed away. Buried emotions do not die. You bury them alive, they stay alive. And that's why I said in the beginning, just because you move away from a conflict, just because it's not as heated anymore, just because we've stopped talking about it, it does not mean that it's resolved. So then when it comes up again next year, somebody says, man, why are you bringing up the past? You still stuck in the past. Doc, that's because we didn't resolve it. It's not resolved. And then you may think it's resolved, but maybe it's not resolved in me. I'm your partner. You're going to help me. You're going to judge me. You're going to help me, or you're going to put me down. Help me get through what I'm stuck on. If I could get past the pain, I would. Who intentionally eats pain chocolate bars? Like if I could stop eating these chocolate bars full of pain, I would. I can't. So help me. Okay. Y'all don't have no questions tonight? I just knew I talked long enough for y'all to have more than one question. But I guess y'all, I don't know. Tell me what you guys have any other questions about resolving conflict or having conflict or communicating with your spouse in conflict or being patient or how many times do I have to forgive them, or how patient do I have to be? How much do I have to put up with? Everything. Spouse told me one time, not my spouse, but one of my clients told me, if he don't work on his stuff, then, I end up paying for where he hasn't grown. And like, why do I have to suffer for whatever? I said, you're right. It's called marriage. You chose a flawed being. And I said, guess what? He suffers too. It's nature of the beast. Stop going into these relationships with these fantastical ideas of how things work. It's work. It does not happen just automatically. Just because I love you, just because we love each other, doesn't mean it's going to just be fancy free and free flowing. It's just, you got to make it great. And it doesn't matter how long you've been married. Okay. It doesn't matter how long you've been in a relationship. I have people who've been in relationships for 20 years come to me and just now start learning how to do what they've been trying to do for 20 years. You can drive the wrong way for as long as you want. You'll never get to your destination because you're going the wrong way. So don't let longevity trick you into thinking, well, we should be blah, blah, blah by now. Whether that's true or not, you are where you are. So, you know, what are you going to do? I actually had, I'm coming to you, Jamian. But I have Desiree, you're gonna have to talk. I mean, you have to talk your question. You have to type your question, because I typically don't do the whole speaking thing, because a couple times I tried it. It went. I have gremlins in my computer, I guess. I don't know, but I don't want to like mess things up. So you'll have to type your question. But I had hold on, because I had wrote a note right before this session, something that I wanted to mention to you guys, and I want to get it. So give me a second. Give me a second. Let me see what I wrote on here. It's bad when you can't read your own handwriting. Oh, here we go. Well, let me answer this question first. No, because this will be shorter than the question. This is for everybody, but primarily ladies. Okay? Do not intentionally push buttons to get a reaction out of your man. It's your relationship. That won't be helpful. Okay, so now you made him blow up. Now what? What's your goal? It's not unity. Okay? Don't do that. That's all I had. All right, so let's look at this question. When should you discuss offenses? Because in the resolution, it will come off as defensive. I'm not sure what you mean, Jamian and Keela. Okay, I hope I said that right. When should you discuss offenses? Because in the resolution, it will come off as defensive. It won't come off as defensive necessarily. So let me explain to you what defensiveness is, because I don't think I did that. Defensive basically is, if I say you hurt me, you start explaining why. That's the simple version of it. You came home late. Well, the reason is because such and such. Not, oh, my bad, you're right, I'm sorry. Even if it's something that you didn't do, but they express a feeling, you validate the feeling as opposed to defending yourself. But to answer your question of when to address offenses, as soon as you can. I would say as soon as you notice them, but sometimes you may notice them while you guys are at work and you can't, right? So as soon as you can, just do not let unresolved stuff just linger. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's toxic. That can turn into, you guys may not have ever seen this, but Ghostbusters 2, way back in the day, like in the 80s. Ghostbusters 2, the original. And in New York, they was in New York, and there was this pink ooze under the city, and it was causing everybody to be evil or whatever. It wasn't on top of the surface, but it was under in the subway and stuff like that. That's kind of how it is when you don't resolve conflict. That pink ooze that's causing you guys to be ugly and disconnected and all that, that's because it's just in your relationship, and you got to get that stuff out. That's why you want to address things as soon as you can. Let's see. I tend to be very abrasive, and my spouse thinks I don't know how to talk to him right. I just don't know how to sugarcoat things. How do you learn to talk nice during conflict? So, I'm going to tell you this. You may not like it, but you have a pride issue, because talking to someone with respect, I'm not going to say nice. Nice is about not being genuine. Okay, so I don't tell people to be nice. Nice and kind are not the same thing. Okay, deal with that another time. But you don't have to sugarcoat. So people use sugarcoating as if what I'm telling you is not true, or as if, I have to be brutal for you to get it. That's not true. So brutal honesty is, so that's like, I tell people to speak the truth in love. That's, my thing is, the truth without love is like surgery without anesthesia. It's painful, even though it's necessary. If your goal is to restore unity, then yeah, you got to talk to humans like humans. You got to talk to men like he's a man, not like he's a kid. Otherwise, you're not gonna make no progress. So that's like going to, you show up to take your test, and they say, it's gonna be Scantron, bring a number 2 pencil, and you say, I don't like pencils, I like pens, I just bring a pen. Guess what you're gonna get? A F. And guess who caused you to get an F? You. Why did you get an F? Because you wanted to do it the way you wanted to do it. That's about best as I can answer it. If you are in a relationship with another person and they don't speak English, you better learn how to speak English or get in a relationship with somebody else. I don't know if that was a good analogy, but you get my point. So you say, how do you learn to talk nice? I'm going to change it. How do you learn to talk respectfully? Fix what's going on inside of you. Because here's the thing, and here's the reason I say that. I'm not trying to put you down, but here's the thing. When we treat people bad, it is primarily because there's bad going on inside of us they did not cause. We came to the relationship with that. You got to deal with that, okay? Being soft is not weak. When I'm talking about, like, conversation. For a man or a woman, being soft in the way you talk to someone is not weak. I can tell you, so I can say, babe, I think you might need some deodorant, because I don't think you should leave like that. I could smell you. That is the same message as, you funky. You ain't take no bath. The second one is the brutal honesty that folk who say, I don't want to sugarcoat stuff, think they got to speak. You weren't born talking that way. Who taught you that? Children don't talk like that. They learn it from other broken humans. And so, yeah, he's right. You want to talk to him differently if you want him to get your message. Now, if you just want to be saying stuff because you just feel like talking, then stay how you are. But there are some, actually, through this series, I think I'll be sharing, and I probably have shared some, I'll be sharing like ways to talk. So I'll help you with that, as we move forward, like how to talk to, people in a respectful way, even when you are upset or whatever, because that's important. That's important. You can't go off on your boss, and they're human. They might piss you off too. You can't do that with them. You may do it, but there are going to be consequences. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. You spoke about removing sarcasm. My question is how? Like, what does that sound like in conflict when you feel yourself possibly about to respond in a way that your spouse feels is sarcastic or nonchalant? So sarcasm is about not sharing how you truly feel, right? So when I'm talking about sarcasm, I'm talking about, like in the example that I gave you, that was a light example, but the way you not do that is just be genuine. Now, if you have a habit of not being genuine, it's not going to be easy. And I'm using that word genuine on purpose because I want your ears to perk up, because I want you to know that you're not being genuine, because folk don't like that. I am genuine. I'm blah, blah, blah. No, you're not. So if I give you sarcasm, and so here's the thing. You may be labeling something sarcasm that's not, right? So when I give you sarcasm, I'm giving you an underhanded message that you can't really interpret, right? If I share something with you and we go left, and at the end I say, well, I guess I can't share anything with you anymore. That's sarcasm. What are you really saying? What you're really saying is, I feel like every time we talk, we go left and it's difficult for me to talk. But that ain't what you said. You said something hurtful, right? So the way you stop that is recognizing. So here's the simple answer. You got to love more. So conflict resolution doesn't work if love isn't first. I started off last week with that. You got to make a commitment to love. And remember, love is not about you. Love is about the person that you're loving. So when I speak to you, I'm speaking to you about my problem, but I am considering you as my partner. I'm not just trying to say what I need to say to get it off my chest. And so because of that, I want to package it in a way that you can receive it, because the reason I need you to receive it, because I need you to change your behavior and how you treat me. But if I give it to you in a way that you can't receive it, then the relationship suffers and we stay stuck. Okay. What if your spouse plays down your offenses when you express them during conflict? Then they haven't learned how to validate, and they are probably walking in fear. So for some reason, they are afraid of either going deeper, or they're afraid of what your offenses say about them, right? They're walking in pride, and it's fueled by fear. So they are basically stuck. And so that's the issue that they have to work out. The difficulty in being in relationships with human beings is at times, sometimes it's us, sometimes it's them, but at times we really have to like pause and wait for them to get their crap together. I literally have to I don't put my life on pause, but my relationship life, I got to pause until you fix this. Why? Because I chose to be in a relationship with you. Now, you can quit. That's what most people do. But what you going to do in the next one? Because all we have to choose from are flawed beings. So you're going to get rid of that one and choose another one. And you're going to take your broken self with you. So my point is, sometimes we have to put up with people, put up with their stuff while they grow. But maybe in that moment, God is trying to grow us in a different area also. I didn't hit nothing, did I? Okay, good. Maybe God is trying to grow us in a different area also, right? And so then I'm just sharing that, like, you know, sometimes we got to put up with stuff that, man, it ain't fair. But I don't know who told you life was fair. It's not fair that the content I give you guys for free, and I'm not on national TV somewhere. In my mind, it's unfair, because I know a lot of folks speak a lot of foolishness, but I ain't, and I just made that up. It's not something I actually think about. But my point is, life ain't about fairness. It's about just living it. It's life for everybody. It's not good or bad. It's just life. Let's see. When I express a hurt, or it's ignored or made inconsequential, I feel worse because they're not willing to see my point of view. How do I explain that? Well, so what I'm about to share kind of highlights what I literally just said about being in a relationship with human beings. And it's not an easy answer, right? So if I express my hurt and it's ignored or made feel. So if I express how I feel and it gets dismissed, because I'm still loving, I need to now take my stuff. So I'm going to explain this, but even as I'm explaining it, I can see how it can be misunderstood. Because although I said these things are not for toxic relationships, I don't know who's on here. But I'm just going to say it because right is right. But this won't work in a toxic relationships, but in a toxic relationship. But you put your hurt to the side and you try to figure out, why are you hurting me this way? Why? Because The relationship is what matters most. Now, you put your stuff to the side, not to forget about it, but to come back to it, because staying where you are only hurts you, and they do not grow. See, you got to get that we are our spouse. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, especially if it's your partner. Your role is to help them be better at life. And if mistreating you is part of the area they're failing, you are to help them. Help them, not make them. Okay? So that's not easy. Just putting your pain to the side ain't easy. But also, too, I need to say this. Is your pain really all on them, or is your pain magnified because of what's inside of you? So you got to get to a place to where they only get the blame for what they are responsible for. There are things inside of you that may be magnifying this thing that make it not easy, or maybe actually make it impossible for you to show love when you're hurting. And that's the thing about love. I used to say that all the time, but the thing about love, I know I said it in the love series. So society says, if you hurt me, I'll hurt you back. But love says, when you hurt me, I'm going to love you more. And people aren't really running to sign up for that. If we would tell more people that before they get married, we could reduce the divorce rate, because folk wouldn't get married. It's not the place you come for happiness, right? You hurt me, I'm going to love you more. Again, this is not for toxic relationships. It's not applicable. You're going to hurt yourself. You cannot do that in a toxic relationship. I'm talking about a regular relationship with just, I'm going to say normal broken people. Normal broken people that are not toxic. Okay. I hope that helped. How do you respond to a minister husband during a conflict? Do I respond to him as a regular person, husband, or as a minister? That's an interesting question. You respond to him like a regular person. He's a human. Is he pastoring you while y'all in the bedroom? Like, he's a regular human, like all the other regular humans on the planet. Just because he has a title don't mean he gets treated differently. Nah. On your job, you get treated differently. Like you guys or my clients, they treat me differently than my lady. But that's because it's different roles. But my lady don't treat me different because I'm a therapist, or because I'm a preacher. She don't treat me different because I'm a preacher. No, we're humans. Just regular old humans. That's it. So if he's requiring you to treat him a certain way because he's a minister, that sounds crazy to me. And or I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. That don't make sense. I tend to like to tell my wife how they should do things, but no one can tell me how to do things. I'm a leader at work, so I'm used to. Wait a minute. So I'm used to. Let me read up here. Why am I trying to read this little print? Okay, so look. I tend to tell my wife, I'm a leader at work, so I'm used to telling others what to do. How can I be more receptive of my wife? You got to deal with your pride issue. You got to deal with your you got to deal with your pride issue, because your wife, you're not her boss. She's a regular person. And if you can't operate in two different worlds, then you need to make your relationship world your primary world and then do something else. Maybe you don't be a leader out in the world, like on your job, because if you can't be, and really, so if you're going to be good at relationships, you may be a leader at work, but you shouldn't be like dominant and telling, like dictating folk at work either. Like that's just not, it's not good human relationships. But to answer your question, when you get home, you treat her like she's your partner. We're equals. We're partners. Like we're one and the same. That's your rib. How are you going to not, if you not receiving what she says hurts you? Why does it hurt you? Because you guys are part of the same team. And you're not the Wizard of Oz. You're not the all-wise, all-knowing. And so you need her input, if for no other reason, to make her feel a part of the team. But beyond that, you can't see everything. God never intended for man to lead his family or his wife and she sit down and shut up. Like, we're partners, equal partners. Okay? There's a leader, but we are equals. We're not like, I'm not subservient. Your wife is not subservient to you. So you got to work on your pride and your and actually, so by working on your pride, I should say this. Let me say it differently instead of working on you. You got to work on your love. How about that? You got to work on the way that you love, because fear and pride cannot overcome love. The only way fear and pride wins over love is if love quits. Otherwise, it's like love is like light and fear and pride is like the darkness. Like, the only way darkness wins is if when light gives up. That is it. The only way. The only way it's going to get dark outside is when the sun stops shining. As long as the sun shines, darkness cannot come in. It's like, so that pride that you're dealing with, you got to increase your love. Here, I have a suggestion for you. Oh man, this is for all of you. This is going to help you. If you trust me, if you trust that I know what I'm talking about, and if you trust that when I talk about God stuff, it's not religion stuff. I don't like religion. And if you trust that what I share is helpful, then get this. It'll help you with your love thing. This book called can you see that? Can't see it. My light's too bright. Okay, I'll just read to you. The God-Shaped Brain. Did I tell you about this last week? It's called The God-Shaped Brain. How changing your view of God transforms your life. This book is written by a psychiatrist, not a theologian. Okay? And in it, he does an excellent job of talking about God's love and how understanding God's love changes our life. When you understand his love, I promise you, it will be so much easier for you to love your wife and be receptive to what she has to say, treating her as an equal and all those things. Yeah. I've been prescribing this book for the last couple of weeks to couples on the relationship. And this is not about marriage, but it's about love, and it's necessary. Let's see. So then how do you deal in toxic relationships while you're going through therapy? Do you just avoid all issues and not talk? How do you deal in toxic relationships while you're going through therapy? Do you, you may have to, right? You may have to, if you're toxic and you can't resolve conflict without making the relationship worse. If you're already in therapy, then yeah, just do the therapy piece, and but really do the therapy, because here's the thing. Therapy works if you do, right? It's not a magic pill. It's not, like, I'm good at what I do, but I cannot save your marriage. I cannot fix your relationship. I help you to do that. I facilitate you on doing that. But you got to work at it. And so if you're in therapy, then definitely engage and engulf yourself. Why? Because you having a better relationship will equate to a better life. It's the only way we have a good life on this planet, by doing relationships better. That's it.